Welcome Baltic World, I'm Charlene.
I'm Crispin.
And today's video, we are going to discuss Lithuania Explained.
Yeah, specifically a video they have just put out. Now, Lithuania Explained, for those that don't know, is a channel, unsurprisingly, discussing Lithuania. And they have fantastic production. They're short, sharp, to the point, very digestible on discrete topics about Lithuania. So whether it's travel or life and society there, we would urge you to check it out if you haven't already. We'll leave a link down below.
For sure. But their latest video actually features us. He has a theory about the Lithuanian Effect. So his theory that he observed with the Lithuanian Effect is that Lithuanians love watching foreigners talk about their country.
Yes, and the actual video features a bunch of other creators that may be focusing on other topics like language, and they would do a feature on Lithuania and see all the Lithuanians heavily engaged because people were talking about their country. And one of the creators in particular made it explicit and said, people from small countries, when they receive international attention, they tend to be much more engaged, much more positive and excited to see the international community talking about their country, that they want to showcase their country as much as possible. And what do you think our experience has been?
The same?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep my powder dry on this because I have my own theory about it, but what's your view?
So, because we did a random video about why you love Lithuania, and that got a lot of attraction, especially because the comments that we got immediately were like, wow, a foreigner's talking about our country. This is so cool. It's kind of cool to hear our language and our history and the stories spoken in English.
Absolutely, yeah. In our first Lithuania-focused video, I do tell the story of Eglė, Queen of the Serpents. And that's because that there are two statues of Eglė in the world. One is in Lithuania, and the other is in Canberra, the capital of Australia. And so I told the story of how I came to learn about Lithuania. And yes, it did get a lot of responses from people in Lithuania. A lot of Lithuanian names popped up in the subscriber list, in the commentary.
Yeah.
And yet I think that it's incomplete to say that it's just that people from small countries are more engaged. I think that's absolutely true, but I also think that it's underserviced in the panoply of topics that YouTube covers. So take history, for example. At one point, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania stretched from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. It was the largest political entity in all of Europe. It was the last country in Europe to be Christianized. And if we think about what we know about medieval England in the same period, or the 100 Years' War between England and France, or what was happening in France, or in Italy, or the Middle East, or the Crusades, or the Byzantine Empire, all of these things that are, I wouldn't say done to death, because I love that content, but we see a lot of videos about on YouTube.
Agreed.
Compare that to the Northern Crusades, the Teutonic Order, the Golden Horde, the expansion of Poland, all of these things that are happening in the region at the time, massively consequential for world history, and just the weight of content that exists. And I think the YouTube algorithm acknowledges is sophisticated enough to push content where things have been underserviced. We actually have a video that has been more financially successful than any other, and it's nothing to do with the Baltic, but I can say with certainty that nobody else has covered it.
No.
We won't need to mention it here if the sleuths out there can do a search, but you understand what I'm talking about. The YouTube algorithm recognized that there wasn't anything in this area, that advertisers may be interested in pushing things on this subject, and because there wasn't really enough content creators out there, the value of that advertising increases, meaning that YouTube algorithm has an incentive to push that to as many people as possible.
Agreed. So you think it's a combination? People are seeking the content, but because it's an underserviced area, talking about Lithuanian culture, history, and whatnot, and the Baltic in general, so the algorithm is now pushing it.
Yeah. I mean, if we just take history as an example, we can cover it in any aspect of Lithuanian life, but just sticking with the history thread. If you're someone who the YouTube algorithm knows consumes a lot of history content, like I do. And they go, okay, there's not much history on Lithuania in the Middle Ages on YouTube, but you do consume a lot of Middle Ages content, then the chances are they're going to be like, oh, here's this brand new topic that you haven't been exposed to, but you do like this kind of thing. Maybe you'll be interested in it. And then when there's a high click-through, because it's unique and unusual, then it will spiral. It will push it as far as possible. I think that's one of the drivers. Another driver is the advertisers. So I think there are three main audiences that make a YouTube video successful or not. One is the viewer, where the Lithuanians are among the most engaged for this content. They have the biggest watch time, they hit the like button, they comment.
See Lithuania, they hit the like button.
And they make a lot of positive commentary. I mean, it's a really great community. So the audience is one constituency. Another constituency are the advertisers, because there'd be businesses out there saying, hey, we have our businesses in Lithuania or the Baltic, and we want to get customers there. So we're going to market to those channels that are talking to that demographic, right? Yeah. And if there aren't many, then the value of the advertising goes up because it's supply and demand. If there's lots and lots of channels talking to the group that the advertisers are aiming for, then the value of the bids are going to go down. Yeah. But if there's only a few, then the bids are going to go up. Now, if the bids are really high, that means Google's making a ton of money. And so Google has an incentive to push it to as many people of that demographic as possible. So I think there's a monetary incentive for the algorithm.
And I guess a question I want to put out is, like, our views have been up and down. Like, I'm just to acknowledge it. Like, we've got a lot of traction for some Lithuanian videos, but others just don't have that same thing. Like, we have a whole series on Lithuanian mythology, for instance, and that hasn't taken off nearly as much as, snacking with my Asian dad about climbing 30 Minutes Tower. So it could be hit and miss, I think.
Yeah, I would. That's a really good point. And now I'm going from the realm of theory into pure speculation, because even though we've made many hundreds of videos, knowing exactly what makes a video successful or not, except in the abstract, is challenging because it's hard to predict. We never would have predicted a lot of the videos that became successful as being the successful ones before we made them. But there are a few factors. One is obviously the quality of the video. That is a factor, no doubt. Another is whether we push it or not. I mean, there are certain videos that we get on Reddit, we get on various networks, and we actually are really proud of the video. So we want the video to be seen as many people as possible, and so we promote it. Yeah. And if we're pushing a video, then there will be, as a consequence of our own efforts, more watch time, more views. And then there are those that I think can be divided between those that are kind of periodic or legacy. So if I'm reporting on the news that's happening in the past 24 hours, well, that'll get a lot of views in a short period of time because it's topical and people are interested in the analysis and discussion. But it's not going to be picked up again and again. People aren't going to be coming back to it. Whereas if it's a topic providing advice about what to do when you travel to Lithuania, the sorts of things you're going to see, then the legacy of that video is going to be quite strong.
This is going more into now your algorithm theory, is because we have evolved. Like, unlike Lithuania Explained and other YouTube channels out there, we changed, we pivoted. So we have a lot of videos that are not Lithuania at all. So our audience is actually much bigger than just Lithuania. I think statistically we're about, 20% with Lithuanian. According to
20% Lithuania, probably 30% the Baltic overall. They include the Latvians, Estonians, Finns, etc. And then, close to 3/4, 2/3 would be other parts of the world, either the UK, the US, Australia, other continents. So it's got a kind of a global audience. But then we debate among ourselves whether or not these are expats living abroad who are interested in this topic, or whether it's just, individuals. I mean, we were dangerous policy, as Lithuania Explained pointed out, and I would discuss a lot of controversial topics. So it was kind of the modus operandi of the channel as it was, is to pick up the most controversial topics we could, discuss them in a respectful way, in a way that wasn't going to get throttled by YouTube, and look at things from different sides and give a position on these controversial subjects. And people who are interested in over-intellectualizing these topics would follow the channel. And then the Lithuania came along because I was passionate about Lithuanian history and I thought it was massively underserviced. And it was the first of our videos to get huge amounts of traction. We had a few others on different topics since, but that was the first one. And at first, we weren't thinking of pivoting to the Baltic at all. We thought, okay, we've got this new audience of people from the region, and we want to create more content to service them. The channel's not about them, but we'll make more content to service them. And then as we did that like every few weeks, when you research things and you keep an eye out for things, you tend to pick up more and more awareness of things in that area. So just like if you're in the market for a Camry or Toyota or whatever,
you'll just see that.
You'll see them everywhere. Because I was more consciously aware of what was going on in the Baltic, I was finding more and more things to talk about from the Baltic. And then that snowballed to the point where we're like, hey, how about we make a Baltic dedicated channel? That was one reason we did it. Another reason we did it was for the algorithm, because like all the creator advice out there is to be like, pick a niche, hammer that niche, so that you become the branded people who do that. So Lithuania Explained explains Lithuania. It is a very well contained structure. And we were like, we're Baltic World. We discuss things that are happening in the Baltic from a foreign policy analysis perspective, the social and political changes that are going on in that region, how it impacts the wider world. And by focusing on that, people who come to the channel know what to expect. Whereas with Dangerous Policy, one day we'd be talking about the British royal family, the other we're talking about villains and pop culture, just completely different topics. And it became a shooting star, what get picked up and what wouldn't be.
I would ask a controversial question, but do you think Baltic World has succeeded?
Yes and no. I mean, it's a powerful question. I think in terms of like on a comparison of channels across YouTube, strange as it is, we're in the top fraction of 1%. Okay, because there are hundreds of millions of channels that are making videos regularly. So when you get on your recommended page and you see those channels with millions of subscribers and hundreds of thousands of views of each video, remember those are the tiny minority, the absolute pointy end, but they have the complete visibility. And because that's your visibility and that's all you see, you tend to think, okay, and you compare yourself to that and you go, oh, it's a failure, right?
Yeah.
But if you compare yourself to the reality of the distribution, it's an incredible success. So just knowing that success is relative is a big one. We have ambitious targets for ourselves, being kind of driven people. And so by that standards, we're always going to fail because we're always going to fall short of our own expectations. But in terms of, if you ask the question, was it worth the time and am I glad that we've done it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't have traded it. If I could do it all again, I would.
Yeah, same. There are so many things that I've learnt about Baltic World, the Baltic countries themselves and foreign policy. It's definitely expanded my worldviews and I feel really enriched. My life feels enriched being part of this community.
And one of the great challenges among many is the battery, which I can see flashing now. So we'll wrap it up. How about you guys? What do you think of Baltic channels? Do you think that it's just the Lithuanians that are dominating the space and clicking like whenever they see their country named? Or do you think it's more complicated than that? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. I'm sure Lithuania Explained would as well. Thank you, Lithuania Explained, for featuring us. It was great to be a part of it.
It's a surprise.
Yeah, it was a good surprise. And you had some great creators on there as well, interviewing them directly. So it seems like a lot of effort went into that video and a lot of great people were featured. So that was awesome.
Yeah, so that's all time we have for today. Again, leave comments, thoughts about the theory, or if you got something else. Why do you watch Baltic World? That's what I really want to know. Otherwise, stay safe and
ciao for now.